Such sights to show you.
Hell yeah.
Welcome to the Horror Syndicate Discourse. It is Sunday night. It is after 8. Do you know where your children are? Or are you a child? Anyway, I'm an overgrown child. Tonight we are going to be talking about a film that is 41 years old, which certainly makes me feel old. It is 1982's and Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist. And we're just going to get into it because I've got Nathan here. Nathan on standby. What's up, Nate?
What's up?
How you doing?
Good.
So, are you ready to talk about the Tobe Hooper film Poltergeist?
Definitely.
So, right off the top, I want to ask, how much do you think Steven Spielberg's hands were in this? Because that is always a topic for debate when this movie comes up.
Yep. Well, he wrote it. He's one of the writers. He normally doesn't get writing credit. He wanted to make it. He actually offered Tobe E.T. before, and Tobe turned that down. So he offered him this. And there were a lot of delays on E.T., so Steven was on set a whole lot more on Poltergeist than he was supposed to be. And Spielberg, Tobe did a cut of the film, but Steven and his editor came in and cut and had final cut. So, and Zelda Rubinstein says that Steven directed it, but she was only on set for 6 days and apparently didn't like Tobe Hooper.
Oh.
She said she talked a lot of shit about him, said that she could tell he had a drug problem.
Oh.
And that when she was auditioning, he was hardly there. And that and Steven said that Tobe isn't a take charge kind of guy. So if there were decisions to be made, Steven jumped in there and made adjustments. Apparently he made adjustments on a lot of stuff. And my scene that I'm going to break down has a lot to do with this topic. And I think Tobe directed it, and I think he collaborated. I mean, Steven wrote it. He would talk to Tobe and Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall, and he would tell them, he would do it like serialized. Like he'd say, hey, I got 20 pages, and he'd read it to the three of them. And so it really was his baby in many ways, but it's still a collaborative medium, and I'm sure Tobe is in there. But to me, there's so many Steven Spielberg hallmarks in there, so many things that he does and that Tobe Hooper does not do. I don't think that Steven directed the film. I just think Steven was an extremely involved producer, which is not too uncommon if you have a producer who is, the one that hired the director and hired everyone and wrote the script and all that. He's obviously he's going to be more in the film than just some guy who hired him and let Tobe do his thing and didn't do anything but just produce it.
Yeah, and like you said, there are a lot of hallmarks that are very Steven Spielberg that you don't really get with a Tobe Hooper movie. I mean, at this point with Tobe Hooper, what would you see? We saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We saw Eaten Alive. Nothing like this.
Funhouse, I think, was a year before. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And Sean mentions the Goldsmith. Is it Goldsmith or Goldstein?
Jerry Goldsmith is the director.
Yeah, I mean that absolutely does. Really, the score feels very Amityville Horror to me. But
I used a lot of this score when I was temping my movie.
Oh, really? Which one? Which movie?
The Poltergeist. The score.
Well, no, which movie of yours?
On a Dark and Bloody Ground. I used this one a lot for just because it had the feeling that I wanted. I wanted that whimsical drama family movie because that's what it has. It has this really pretty music and comforting music, just like Jerry is underrated in some ways. Like John Williams gets a lot of love, but Jerry is just as good, if not better. My composer especially said, he said he was a bigger fan of Goldsmith than Williams. And I think the difference here is John has a lot of themes that are very big and recognizable,
iconic.
Yeah. Whereas this one just kind of flows on its own, and it's not there to invade, but it's very present. But this score is great. And one night I was listening to it on the way home from work, and one track scared the shit out of me. I was nervous getting out of my car in the garage and going in the house because I don't know, there's something about it. Was if you ever listen to the music alone, there's some tracks that are actually really.
I never have, but I know there are certain scenes in the movie that the music is just very spine tingling. Especially towards the middle and even in the end. My daughter loves this movie, so.
And Jerry, just a couple of years before this, done Alien. He did Gremlins after
the
this.
Omen also.
Yeah, so this guy's a big deal. Great composer.
He's done a lot of the Planet of the Apes. Star Trek: The Motion Picture. He's done a lot of stuff before this. I think the first 3 Omen movies. I have that on my list here. But even so, First Blood, Psycho 2. So much. Then you said Gremlins.
Yeah,
there's a lot. This guy, I didn't realize until I looked him up that he's responsible for so much. I don't pay attention to the names. I used to not pay attention to the names for years. I think until I got this on DVD back in the early 2000s, I did think this was Steven Spielberg's film, directed. Because I always had it in my Steven Spielberg area.
Yeah.
I saw that they're directed by Tobe Hooper is what I thought it was at the time. I'm like, who's that? And then I found out who that was. I'm like, oh, this does not feel like his film. But yeah, the score is fantastic, and the family element is big for me in this movie. I don't know why, but it always gets me. Just kind of like Jaws. It's like almost everyday life is going on, and then an event happens. It's
23 minutes before the "they're here" scene happens. Yeah. So he invests time to make us feel safe, make us love the family. You just feel like those people and you love them already, and you don't want anything bad to happen to them.
Right.
And then you do, because he starts making all this awful stuff happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love is the opening. You follow the dog around the house as he's basically cleaning up after everyone,
Just looking for food.
Yeah, that's dog for you. Oh, by the way, could you imagine a Tobe Hooper E.T. movie?
I'm sure it would have been very similar to this. Yeah. I really do. I kind of, in a way, feel that Tobe Hooper was kind of he's a director, but I think it's similar to how if Tobe Hooper were directed an episode of Hill Street Blues or something, you come in, you do the movie, but it's really the producer's movie, and you kind of just, you put your input in there, but for the most part, you're just doing your job. It's not a Tobe Hooper movie, really.
It doesn't even say a Steven. It just doesn't say a Steven Spielberg production.
Probably. I really think Steven wanted to make this one, and that's why he offered Tobe E.T. And but then he had to make one or the other. Tobe passed on E.T., and so he needed to make both of them. So I think he said, "All right, I'll do E.T." And when ET was held back, he's like, well, shit, I got time to work on Poltergeist, but I can't direct it, but I can be there as much as possible. And there's so many stories of Steven being there, so hands-on, taking care of Heather and all these things. So, he was there when they were, there's 2 incidents where the kids were like scared or almost injured. And Steven was the one who ran in there and took care. Like the clown, when it chokes the boy, it was actually choking him, was cutting his breath off. And they thought he was acting at first. And they could see he was turning red. So Steven jumped in there and ripped it off of him.
It's good acting. And wait, he's not acting. He's turning blue.
And
I did not know that.
Heather wasn't scared of anything except for the scene where she has to hang onto the headboard and is being sucked
into the.
And she started freaking out, and Steven apparently ran in there and grabbed her and calmed her down, hugging her and told her she didn't have to do it again. So when you see the person fly in, it's a stunt person. But then later on, I noticed when that happens again at the very the after the false ending where Joe Beth Williams is coming there trying to pull them out. Heather is just like laying flat on the bed. I don't know if it's even Heather, but you never see her face. She's not flying really like Robbie is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's Heather or it's a double. But you never see her face, so it could be a double.
I mean, for a 6 or 7-year-old girl at the time, she goes through the ringer in this movie. She gets all that gelatinous gunk on her, I mean, she's a little trooper because she goes through it 2 more times,
Yeah.
And she's just the cutest little thing in this movie too.
Yeah.
And then Jo Beth, talk about somebody who goes through it. She probably got the most, got wrecked the most in this movie. If you think about, especially in the last 10 minutes or so, with the she opens the door and immediately her legs come up from behind her, and then she gets flying up, and then she gets the Amanda Wiss treatment, crawling on the ceiling. And then, of course, being in the pool all dirty with the skeletons that are real skeletons.
I had never really thought about the parallels of Elm Street. Like, if Wes.
You know who pointed that out to me today?
Who?
Helena, my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter. She's like, oh, it's just like Nightmare on Elm Street when Tina. I'm like, you should be on the show.
It's not just that. It's like she's wearing a jersey shirt like Johnny Depp and all those characters.
That's true.
And she has a gray streak in her hair. Oh, so I was like, holy shit, dude.
There's a lot of parallels there.
Yeah. And then there's like parallels of Evil Dead in this movie, I think. I saw some Evil Dead stuff, like the book coming and flying around and flapping and laughing.
Yeah, laughing, yeah.
And there's something else I felt was very Evil Dead. Like the tree grabbing Robbie, the roots and all that.
Yeah.
Made me think of Evil Dead. So, and all those movies were made in around the same time. So I'm sure there were influences.
So,
yeah,
that's they're probably. And when we were earlier in the movie, when they're in Carol Ann and Robbie's bedroom, there are so many things all around them, like a Rubik's Cube, Clue, and Star Wars posters. The C-3PO light switch, there's
pays to have George Lucas as your buddy,
right? Yeah,
because there's Star Wars all over ET and Poltergeist.
Oh yeah,
all the figures and stuff.
It's great because like we were pointing out all of the. She did a lot of it, but pointing out all the little Easter eggs in that bedroom alone, which I think is one of my favorite things about this movie.
Yeah, there's a big thing about the Super Bowl poster above Robbie's bed. Like they're like, what is that? Because it says 1988, and the movie is 1982. Yeah, it says 1988 Super Bowl, whatever 1988 would be. Like, what the hell's the story behind that?
That's weird.
Yeah, it's like this weird thing in the movie. Like, I don't know. Like maybe the prop department made it for the movie and just said, "We'll see if anybody notices this. Make it the future or something."
Well, they do also pound into our head that this takes place in Los Angeles with the Los Angeles Rams on there and the LA Dodgers hat, and good stuff. I really like it.
There's another little thing. I give you that picture of the photo in the parents' bedroom. One of the ones I sent today, if you can throw that up, because while we're on it, about stuff. There's something I noticed about this painting.
This one here?
No, the other one. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's a drawing, but when I first looked at it from afar, it looks like an angel.
Mm-hmm.
Like a standing angel holding forth like a rose or flower.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
But if you look at it, it's also a dove, like a peace dove with a leaf in it. And
like
so,
an olive branch maybe in its mouth?
like an olive branch in its mouth. So I said, "Oh, there's two double meanings." I think that has to be on purpose.
Yeah.
And I think the angel is probably Carol Ann because she is the angel for these people.
We want the angel. Yeah, I never noticed that.
Yeah, I just noticed it today. I was watching it, and
great eye, Nate. Jeez.
And it made me think of an angel right away. And then when I saw a closer shot later in the movie where it's closer, I'm like, oh, that's a dove. And I said, but it could be both.
Yeah, absolutely. I always thought it was an angel passing by. But yeah, you're right, man. That's good eye. And it definitely does look like it's carrying, like you said, it's a flower or a branch.
Yeah.
I don't know why I think of olive branch because of the American
like peace and
yeah, but I don't know why they would want peace. They just want her.
And well, some of them do. Cain's the one who's evil.
Yeah. When she comes in the second movie, Julian Beck's amazing.
Oh, he's amazing. He's terrifying. Yeah. If you that other picture you threw up, I'll go ahead and address that because I just did it as this is all art direction, that painting, but there's a whole lot of tree stuff in this movie. Of course, we know what happens with the tree. There's in the opening shots. There's a lot of shots of trees. There's a tree in the middle of the street of the tall tree that has like a roundabout almost around this big tree, and this tree in the house. And the thing is, this tree does something that's really cool. Is it's actually leaning and curving towards the upstairs doorway there, which is an important thing. It's directing our eye to it. It's helping direct it. So it's just a little nice piece of art direction there.
Yeah, very good.
But it's a tree motif, and there's a lot of other tree stuff in there.
Yeah, because everything's coming from right up those steps.
Yeah, once again, and that tree is helping guide you even more because it's curving right toward it. And those stairs, the staircase is very awkward. It's not very practical. It curves. It does this weird curve. Of course, all this was a set, so they were able to build it to what they wanted to do. And the other thing about trees I noticed is Carol Ann's headboard kind of looks like a family tree type of thing, the shape of it. So I think there's a lot of tree stuff in the art direction because it's foreshadowing the whole thing about the tree. That becomes the thing that scared me the most as a kid, really, was the tree.
Do you think it has anything to do with nature also, though? With, I don't know, like...
Well, I mean, the tree lives beneath the ground too, like the bodies. Right. So there's they're uprising, and at the end, the bodies rise out of the ground like a tree would, I guess. So, or the roots are still there, for other people.
Yeah, just like when Teague tells them they moved the cemetery, but they didn't.
And then again, the whole family tree metaphor. The movie is very much about family and love, and Jo Beth Williams. It's just great stuff about her love for her children, and her fighting, like, get away from my babies, leave my babies. And Jo Beth Williams is so fantastic in this, and she's gorgeous. I always had a crush on her from this movie, and and she really didn't have a huge career. I don't know why.
I don't know. That's a good question. She's in some things here and there, but like nothing
nothing major.
I don't think.
Yeah, she didn't really have any big Hollywood career. She was in a few other movies I remember seeing her in, but mostly supporting stuff or just kind of smaller films. But I thought she's so good in this. Like, I totally buy her, and like her, joy when with the whole chair scene and
I love that scene.
Yeah, and then like just the terror and the desperation, and it's like these heartwarming moments again, which is Spielberg, where she
I mean, she gets put through it too, man.
Oh yeah.
She's a trooper.
Like the scene where she tells, well, Tangina says your daughter is still alive and in this house, and the way she just like hearing, you could feel the weight lifted off of relief of someone tells me my daughter's still alive, and we can get her, but your faith is going to be important for me to get her. You have to fight for your children, and I know you're going to fight because you love them, and you know. And then there's a scene. There's a scene with the doctor too, where she is talking about Carol Ann. Oh, it's the scene where Carol Ann passes through her.
And
she
you can smell her.
I can smell her.
Yeah.
That was so beautiful of a moment because, like, you know, you can smell your kids. You can like when they're young, you know, like you could smell because they all have that smell that's familiar. And like when she's like going around the room, smell. This is my daughter. This is my daughter. It's just. I love Tobe Hooper. I don't think that's a Tobe Hooper thing.
No, that's definitely not.
It's a Spielberg thing.
Smell this flesh. No, like there are certain scenes in this movie that just get me emotionally, and it's after becoming a father, I think, like that. And we talked about the bathtub scene, which it gets me tearing up every time when Carol Ann, you know, hi, Daddy, every time.
Oh, yeah, it's so
it
good.
Just tears me apart in a good way. Yeah. You know, and I like watching it with Helena, and that part happens, and I'm struggling to hide my emotion from her. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Oh, this part always gets me. It just does."
But that word "daddy." It's my favorite word, and I always say, like, hearing your little girl call you daddy is like, it just hits you in the heart.
It does, and and I mean, it's just like. She was asking me about that, like, and I kept thinking to myself, like, and then I explained, I was like, imagine, you know, and they can't really understand this, but I imagine not being able to see my daughter for X amount of days or weeks or however long it was. It was a while, you know, and not knowing where she is. There's so much uncertainty, and then that moment that you finally see her back, and for a second you're not sure if the mom or the daughter are alive, and when they, you know, when Jo Beth Williams exhales, and you're like, oh, good, and then she's just, it's like that moment, that whole moment, just like completely crushes me in a good way. You know, it's like, it's so great.
That the family, like, you just feel so much for them, and you feel the love. You feel like it's a very believable family where even like something as small as, I love the scene where they're all sleeping in the living room with the investigators and the doctor, who's really fantastic too in the movie.
Yeah,
I don't ever hear anyone talk about her, but that scene where she's talking about heaven, some people believe when you die, whatever. And I love that they're whispering. It just adds something different. Like they're trying not to wake up other people, and they're whispering. And then there's a part towards the end where Robbie is saying "Good night, Dad," and like "Good night, Dad," "Good night, Mom," and then he looks at the TV and says "Good night, Carol Ann," and it's so sweet because he's saying it to his sister. You know, like they're all together, and it's like I don't know. There's just so much tenderness in this movie. And I remember one time I heard someone complain about this movie, saying it was weak because no one dies, and or that makes it not a horror movie or whatever. And
they did not see the scene where the guy rips his face off. I'm just saying.
I mean, the truth be told, the original script, the original idea, Carol Ann was supposed to die in the first act.
Oh, I'm glad she did.
It was her ghost that was haunting the house. That was the original initial idea, and then they realized that was too dark.
Generic, though.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't it?
Yeah, which could bring up my one section if you want to do my segment.
We can do that for sure.
That's kind of a segue into that, really.
Yeah, let me. Great comments.
What's that?
It's blank.
It's blank.
All right. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and do that. We're just kind of doing your autopsies, right? That's what you want to do.
Oh, I was going to do the.
Or you want to do the other thing?
The movie thing, because it kind of ties in, because the other movie's kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, man.
So I do a segment where I kind of suggest a movie if people haven't seen it, and I thought about it. I was like, well, there's a movie that came out. There's a movie that came out the same year 1982, that also has the little boy in it, Oliver Robbins, I believe.
Oh, really?
I met him a couple years ago. Yeah.
Did you really?
But he's in this movie.
Does he still have buck teeth?
No. But this is a TV movie from 1982. It's actually really, really good. Creepy. It's a good era for TV horror movies. Like, the year before this, you had the Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. This movie also has kind of a tie to Spielberg. The father of this family is Dennis Weaver, who starred in Duel, which Spielberg directed.
This fellow?
Yeah. Who was another great TV movie. And that's Valerie Harper, who people probably know from TV, like Valerie and all that. She was the original Hogan's Family mother and all that. And she was on other stuff way before that, of course.
Yeah.
So anyway, and Ruth Gordon from Harold and Maude is in it, and Rosemary's Baby. And she's, of course, her spunky self, like she always is, like only Ruth Gordon could do. But really, all right. So it's a story. It's very similar. This family has just moved into a new home. Father's a career guy, busy, but I guess he has struggled with alcohol, and they had an older daughter. They have 3 kids, but the oldest daughter was killed in a car accident that they got into, and I think the dad was responsible. He was driving, so he's got a lot of guilt. But they move into this new house, and the youngest sister is talking and seeing her older sister, a ghost, and the sister wants revenge, and so actually they start killing family members off, like the 2 collaborating to off their family members who are not believing or against her, or they said she don't like. So I won't go into all the details, but it's actually really dark, and I think I have a copy of it. I got it at a convention, but I don't know if it's ever been officially released, because again, it's a TV movie and a lot of them aren't. But I think it's probably on YouTube if anybody wanted to check it out. But
I am looking right now because my interest is definitely piqued. Don't go. Here's the title of it. Don't Go to Sleep.
Yeah.
From 1982, because usually. See here. So usually they tell me on Google where is it streaming and stuff like that, but nothing came up. Yeah, it looks like you can find it. There's a couple different versions of it on YouTube. So hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, if you want to watch a quick, great vintage 1982 TV horror movie, with a pretty all-star cast, really. The little girl, I don't know her name, but she was in Annie like the year or 2 before this. She was one of the orphan girls.
What's going on here?
That is a fire in her room, and I think the sister caused it, and they come in and rescue her. So there's again, it's a kind of a mean-spirited haunting movie. So when you said the whole thing about Carol Ann, that being not as good of a choice. That's kind of what this movie is. It's the daughter haunting the house, but collaborating with the other kid. And they just think she's nuts. I think they commit her, which is probably the other shot where you saw her. Looks like she's in an institution.
This one here.
Yeah. So they just think she's crazy because she's talking about her sister, and she's talking to her sister, and they're like, "Well, your sister's been dead for a year or 2, yeah." So. And the grandmother, Ruth Gordon, she's living with them, and her and Dennis Weaver butt heads because she, of course, blames Dennis Weaver because she was real close with or she loved the granddaughter, or has a picture of her in her room and always looking at it. So it's just, again, the cast is outstanding. It's there's something charming about those 80s and 70s TV movies. I prefer those to the 90s stuff, where everything looked like it was on video.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so, yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up because it's another paranormal family-based movie that came out that same year with same kid, Oliver.
That's
Robin.
crazy. He was a hot commodity back then. So if you get a chance, it's on YouTube. Just got to search for "Don't Go to Sleep" 1982. That's what I did, and I found two versions. So I might have to check that one out.
The hell.
Holy cow, you were lighting up.
Yeah, somebody's like, people keep following me on Threads all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What did they announce?
Twitter is no longer Twitter anymore. It changed on my app, and it's now X. So, what did he do?
Yeah, I just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people follow me just now.
Do you ever mess with that yet?
Not really. I just wonder like something got announced and released and some artwork or something. I don't know. Who knows? Or maybe I'm being canceled. Knock on wood.
Yeah. The world is a weird place right now. So, do you want to get into your scene?
Yeah, I could do that because it does tie into the whole Spielberg did he or did he not thing.
Since we've done that. All right.
Chubby Nate.
Well, you like me and you have reverse spots. Last summer I lost 50 pounds, and I've gained a lot of it back. Now this summer you've lost 50 pounds while I took your weight. Anyway,
thank you.
Yeah, let's get into this. This is a good scene. Let's set it up.
All right, so I chose this scene because this is out of all the movie, this is the most Spielberg. It's a single shot. And I know that Steven was there that day because Zelda Rubinstein is in it, and she said that Steven was there and directed the movie, and the 6 days she was there.
Do you wonder if, like, I just thought of this, like, you know how they have second unit and stuff like that, or maybe Tobe Hooper wasn't there, or maybe because her and him don't get along.
I wondered if like if he, but the thing is, somebody spoke up and said, I don't know why she didn't like Tobe because he was very kind to her, very nice to her. But I did start thinking that too. Like, what if Steven realized that, and like, so he like, hey, take a back seat, Tobe, or I'll deal with Zelda, But this scene, the way it's shot, is very much what Steven does really brilliantly, which is if you don't have to cut, don't cut. So this is all one shot. It's all in the blocking, slight camera moves, which would save a whole lot of time too, doing this instead of, because if you had, it's like there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the shot and scene, and they're all kind of, if you were to get coverage, I talked about that last week with the Invisible Man, that shot with the kitchen scene. If you get coverage, that just takes time to set up and get this and get that person and get that person. So Steven's very much old school. He used to shoot. He started in TV, and he tried to do it all in blocking and try to do it as practically as possible. But it also creates just wonderful filmmaking. And so this is a scene where, and this had to have been Steven because I don't think Tobe does this. But this is a scene where Tangina is, I think they're going to go into the room and go to the closet with the rope and all that, and they had the tennis ball. So the scene starts on a close-up of the tennis ball and the guy writing the number on it. And then the camera doesn't cut. It just pulls back a little bit, and we see Craig T. Nelson walk in to frame with the rope and hand it to him, and then he crosses the room, and the camera kind of just pulls back a little bit. So then we get this shot of everyone there, and they would have designed this space so that we have depth. Like there's 2 or 3 different layers to this structure. I don't know if they're in a bedroom or in a hallway, and
I think they're in the hallway here.
Yeah, it looks like a hallway, but it also looks like he may be sitting in a room.
Yeah.
And there's a doorway, or it's just another. I don't know. It's just this architecture that allows them to have depth, where actors can move in upstage and downstage, and then they're all perfectly present there, and we can see them. And Tangina's in the middle because she's our focus. This guy, they're all kind of looking towards Tangina, and that's when Tangina moves forward. So she's going to walk up into the frame, close up, and she's talking to Carol Ann, and she tells Jo Beth Williams to talk to Carol Ann. So Jo Beth's talking to her, and then she wants Craig T. Nelson to come over and talk to her. So now he's tall. When he walks over, they're going to lose him, so the camera has to go low. So the camera goes low, so we can have Craig come closer and Jo Beth Williams come closer. But it gives us a great ominous shot. Yeah, and then she tells him to yell at her, tell her, tell her, whatever. And so it has to rise up to Craig T. Nelson. So the camera moves up to him. And it's just enough that we could see Zelda's head bobbing down across because she goes back into the hallway. And so they look back at her. She's like, tell her she's going to get a spanking, And she's touching the door. And then it's going to rack focus to her when they look back at her in the next shot. And then Jo Beth Williams is going to go back there into a 3 shot. She's going to go against that wall. And they're going to be looking back, and they're still talking. And that's where she tells her, go to the light. And then it goes into, she's telling her to go into the light. And she, I hate you for that. And then they goes back towards Tangina. And then even more into Tangina. And then she turns her attention to the door. And then the shot ends on the doorknob because that's where they're going to go. And then it cuts to the other side of the door, them opening. So all that's one shot. It starts with the tennis ball, ends with this doorknob, all in one shot. And we get all of that conversation, and the scene's 3 minutes long. And what keeps it going is that blocking, that movement, and just the slight camera moves to adjust to keep everyone in frame and guide the eye where he's. And then that's Spielberg 101. If you really study Spielberg, so I know for a fact that whole sequence had to be Steven. But that isn't saying he did it because there's not a whole lot of that in the movie. There is some really great filmmaking like that. But that's just a great example of getting it on one take without having to cut. Actors probably love it because it's kind of like theater.
I was just going to say that's almost like being on stage in a way.
Yeah. Unless you don't like theater. Some actors in film aren't familiar or didn't do theater and don't like rehearsing and don't like that way. But maybe it was also to hurry up and get Zelda and Tobe away from each other.
It could be.
I'm sure we know that Tobe had a coke addiction. Right? I mean,
was she is she the poster child for clean living? I mean, I don't know.
It's very possible that he did have a drug problem that maybe they didn't know about.
He did. I heard he did.
I'm pretty sure he did, and and maybe that was part of the reason why Steven did maybe step in some.
Well, think about how John Larroquette was hired for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre voiceover. He just gave him some pot. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know. I mean, she does only have a couple of scenes, but her scenes are all very powerful. And I wonder if Steven Spielberg did direct just what she did because, she had beef. I don't know.
There's a lot of possibilities, but we'll never know, and they're never going to come out and say. It seemed like Steven did come out and say that he directed a lot of the movie, and then backtracked and made an apology publicly in the newspapers or something, saying, "Oh, I think people mistook what I said." But then later on, he said the whole thing about Toby's not a take charge kind of guy, so I would step in and make a move. So, it's unfortunate if Tobe really did direct this and Steven wasn't, but I do think Steven was very, very involved in it. I think he was there a lot when he wasn't doing ET. I think he was very concerned with it. The fact that he sent his editor to edit Poltergeist instead of ET. He got somebody else to edit ET, and he sat in on the editing with Poltergeist. I do think it's the movie he wanted to make, but I think he said that like people because of what he was doing with his career, he maybe felt a little anxious about doing a horror movie again. So he got a horror director to do it.
I was just looking because we'll never know the truth, more than likely, But what was wrong with why did ET shut down?
I don't know. There was just delays. Maybe it was effects, something. I don't know necessarily why, but I just read that the reason Steven was on set a whole lot more because there were delays on ET. And both movies came out the same year and like a week or two apart from each other.
Yeah, wasn't that called the
Summer of Spielberg?
Yeah.
And the two films were shot like 20 miles from each other.
Oh, really?
I mean, they look like the same neighborhoods. So
yeah.
I mean, I know Poltergeist was shot in Simi Valley, which I was going to go to that house and the ET house, but it's like northern Los Angeles or that area.
Maybe the next trip out there. Apparently I watched Horror's Hallowed Grounds on Poltergeist with Sean Clark, and he got to talk to the neighbor where they had the remote control fight. That neighbor, it's not the same guy, obviously, it was an actor, but he knows all about the history of that house and who's lived there and where whether or not the pool stuff was shot there on a stage, because apparently all that stuff's been shrouded in mystery. But he said it was all shot there at the house, the pool stuff. But there's a pool in the backyard now.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah, that is definitely a place. I'm sure thousands of people go there a year to see the house because it's such a iconic. It's just as iconic as the Amityville house, in my opinion.
There's so many cool houses out there. Like when I was out there again, like the obvious ones, Elm Street and Halloween and all that. But I went and saw Marty McFly's house and Lance's house from Pulp Fiction, and there's
nice
Pee-wee's house and the house from Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, at the end of the video.
Yeah,
nice. That's cool.
It was all pretty dilapidated and all that.
Was it really?
Yeah, Vernita Green's house from Kill Bill, the opening scene where she goes in and fights her. That house.
That's cool.
So yeah, I would like there's so much you could see out there, and I did see quite a bit. Thankfully, my wife put up with me for that on our anniversary trip out there.
I mean, who takes the pictures of you with you in it if you're not taking them yourself?
We were out there for about a week, I think, so we had time.
Was it the year you went and saw Halloween?
Yeah, it was 2018
when
Halloween came out. Yeah, that's because we went to the Cinema Dome or whatever the one that's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Briefly.
Is that where?
It's not where she goes to see her movie, but there's a shot. I think it may be in the beginning where Brad Pitt is maybe driving home. I think some of the places he passes. So like there's like an old Taco Bell that lights up and Cinema Dome. I believe it's in that opening scene where Cliff's on his way home.
It's been a minute since I've seen that. I'd like to watch it again. I don't think I've seen it since it came out on Blu-ray. Hell of a good movie though.
Yeah.
And quite the meme maker. Yeah. After that movie came out, that showed up everywhere.
I love that scene just because the way they're talking is so like how the industry is. Like, I know that guy; he's an asshole. Oh, that's a pretty good jump. That was a good shot. Oh, that guy. It's just funny.
Which I bet you do that when you watch movies sometimes too.
Especially if I somebody I know, I might like, hey, that was a pretty good shot. Yeah, that was a good performance. You got a good performance out of him. Or, I've sat there with directors watching the rough cut. Like, yeah. Oh, you should do this. And then don't do it.
So, what else do you have in your notes?
Oh, let's see. I do have quite a few. All right. I was going to read this. This is a friend of mine, Chris Stanton, on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big movie buff. Like I do the whole 10 movies I watch, last 10 movies I'll watch. He's kind of one inspired me to do that because he does that. Not as frequently as I do, but he watches a lot of movies, and he's a writer. He just did a comic book that he's really proud of, and God damn, I should have got the name of it because it's on Amazon. If I can remember, I'll put it in the comments. But Chris is a good dude, and he's very smart, very big film cinephile, seen a whole lot of movies. And Poltergeist is his favorite movie. And he commented on my post about it. He said, that's my all-time favorite movie. And I was like, well, why don't you say something? Like someone who loves movies as much as he does and knows so much about film, for this to be his favorite movie, I was like, well, you probably have something to say. And if you say, write me something, I'll say it. I'll read it. So it's not very long. It's not like just some big informative thing. It's just him expressing, what this movie means. And he said, Poltergeist has always been my favorite film. Something crucial it does right is establishing from the very first few scenes that this is a family that just about anyone can relate to, from potato chips in bed to the dad falling asleep in front of the TV. The humor in its first act is also crucial in endearing the Freelings to us. So the horror that follows has more impact. Plus, the tree branch coming through the window always seemed like my ultimate nightmare. So yeah, like everything that opening scene, as he mentioned, and then even like the great guy riding the bike. You talked about the remote car and with the beers and spilling it all, and then still running in with them all spraying everywhere, and they're just watching the ball game. And like that's another thing in that first act, and almost through the whole movie, of course, there's TVs everywhere. Like we see Craig T. Nelson asleep watching TV in the living room. They have one in their bedroom, the Freelings, when the kids are in the bed with them, and it happens again. And then even the next scene in the kitchen, there's a little TV in the kitchen. So I think Steven Spielberg is trying to say, I hate TVs, I hate television. They're not films. People should go back to the movie theaters and watch movies. Which also plays into my all-time favorite movie ending, which is Poltergeist. The scene where they are walking in Holiday Inn on the balcony, and they go in they go into the room, and Craig T. Nelson opens the door, comes back out, shoves that fucking TV out, looks around, slams the door shut. Like, fuck that TV. I just love it. It's just a beautiful, perfect. There's so many little nice details that, again, I think they're Spielberg details. It's that there's a few others I think I made notes of. If I come across it, I'll bring it up. But there's little bitty hallmarks thing, going back to the Jaws thing where, my favorite scene in Jaws at the table where the little boy's doing. Now that wasn't Spielberg making it up. Roy Scheider noticed the little boy doing that, and told Steven, "Hey, look, check this out," and they put it in the movie. So, but also you have to be, as a director, you have to be noticing those things or making those calls. Like that's gold. We're going to do that. Just like Harrison Ford saying, "Well, if I was really in this, I would just shoot that swordsman. I'm not going to fight him." And so, yeah, that's perfect. Let's do it. It's such a moment where you remember that moment. Like that scene would not be memorable if Harrison had to fight him. It would just have been another fight scene.
Yep. Yeah.
But the fact that he just like it puts like so nonchalantly, and all the people hustle to get the sword to steal it, I guess. There's little things in there, and I probably have it in my notes that I love the scene where they're together, the couple in their bedroom, and they're smoking pot, and he's reading a book on Reagan because like they're obviously hippies. The way they're talking about how we used to be adventurous, we used to be free-minded or open-minded, and now we're married with children, and in the system.
I do think he could have made the Olympic diving team, though. Fucking Olympics, Diane.
It's just there the whole before after in the mirror.
That's great, though. I like the way that's shot.
Oh, wonderful, yeah.
Because you can see him looking at himself in the mirror. I love that. Yeah.
And it's real. It's like that's real moments that real people have with their spouses. and then the whole thing with the kids, and then the kids are going to come in, and you got to go in there, and calm them down, and
and then it cuts to them in bed with the two kids, which I love. One
so
of my
great.
favorite little parts about that whole scene is when he calms down and talks to Robbie. I think she's gonna pass over us because I can count. And then he walks by Dana's room. Good night, Dana, and she hides the phone real fast. And then he closes the door and opens back up. Get off the phone, Dana, and you look at her face, know. And even the moment in the morning, the next morning, when Dana and Robbie and Carol Ann are having breakfast together, they seem like they're all brothers and sisters, And even though she's older, she the Dana character, whose name now I can't remember. Fuck.
Oh, the Dominique Dunn.
Yeah, Dominique Dunn. Yeah. She seems so like she is 16.
Yeah.
And then of course she's the great scene with her outside.
Oh yeah,
the guys. With Billy.
Yeah, with Sonny Landham and what's his name from Texas Chainsaw 2?
Is that LG?
It's LG. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. He plays Bluto.
Yeah, he plays Bluto on sneaking the food and everything.
Great coffee, Mrs. Freeling.
Wow. Yeah, like that link. I love that, like you said, the cut to them laying in bed with the kids, because Craig T. Nelson's gone in there to do the work of trying to calm them down. And if I had to say, if I read in the margins of that scene, we all know how we are. Like if we're married and have kids, and they're hanging out, and they're smoking pot, they're playing around, they're laughing, it's probably going to lead to some lovemaking. Right.
Yeah.
But then the kids, I gotta go, but I gotta keep them in their bedroom. So I gotta go in there and invest my time to say, oh, well, you're all right. Go to sleep. Everything's cool. And then of course we know that they didn't get to make love because the kids got in bed and they came back in. So there's that. To me, I don't know if that's intentional, but I'm like, that's what I read in that. And I love little cuts like that where you're like, all right, everything's cool, and then boom, no, they're in bed. It made me think there's a great scene like that in The Last of Us, in the game and the show, where Ellie says they're driving and there's like, why don't you get some sleep? She goes, I can't sleep, I'm wide awake, I'm total. And then it cuts to her sitting in the driver's seat sleeping, or passenger side. So it's just great. I love stuff like that. It's funny, makes you laugh, it makes you just, it's endearing, it's relationship building,
and it feels real.
It's very real.
It really feels realistic. I mean, how many times did your daughter end up in your bed?
All the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the like you said. It makes this movie, the beginning of it makes you feel safe. It's set in suburbia. You get to know the family. It's a great setup for a lot of good chilling moments. Maybe not. This movie did creep me out when I was younger. There's a lot of great scenes. Like, of course, one of my favorite scenes is the tennis ball scene, which we saw the beginning of. But like when the actor that plays the I don't know his name, but he's great too.
Yeah, he's
like,
really good.
Yeah,
he hasn't done a whole lot. He didn't do a lot because I was looking at him, I was like, I know I think he just reminds me of some other actors.
Yeah,
of that era, but he wasn't those other actors. But he's great. Everyone in it is really, really good.
He said, when he catches the tennis ball, he says, he looks at it like, kiss my ass. Like, that's a real reaction.
Well, I love, his best scene, or the best moment with him, is where he's bragging to Craig D. Nelson about the footage he caught. Like, oh yeah, it moved, and he's like he's gonna blow Craig T. Nelson's mind. Like, oh, it took like for over 2 hours. We got it on footage. It's yeah. And he's like, oh,
I got it on time-lapse camera. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay. And he opens the door and it's like fucking chaos.
Yeah.
It's like The Exorcist when she goes in.
And then of course you get that great shot of the Hulk riding the pony.
It's like, well, look what we're dealing with every fucking day. And then it cuts to them at the table and they're all like kind of stunned and like shit's just moving. And like the Freelands are like, same shit another day.
The female doctor is shaking. She's visibly shaking. It's they come for them for help and they get that. I love that. I mean, it's so realistic to me that's the kind of reaction I feel like any ghost hunter or whatever you want to call them, paranormal psychologist, whatever they are, would like if they saw some real serious shit. I think they'd be shaken like that. Or the guy trying to take pictures of light moving so fast with the lens cap on. There's just a lot of good stuff in the early parts of this movie that maybe people don't notice as much.
Maybe they're waiting for the horror, but that's what I love about this film is it takes the time, and that's what they did then. They take the time to invest in characters, make you love them and care for them, and I've talked about that with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake being one of the problems that movie had was that we don't get any innocence with the characters before the movie really gets into the darkness because they're already a problem. But like we don't get that, teenagers hanging out at Tina's house in the phone call with the mom and the tape cassette and all that and laughing and having fun together. It just sinister, yeah. But one thing, like some people like them, some people don't. That's one of the reasons I love The Conjuring was it felt like the closest thing I'd seen to Poltergeist in a long time because
Conjuring's a lot more popular than I bet you'd think. But yeah, you get a great opening with a great song too, with the family, the girls moving into the house. Yeah,
moving in the house, which is a wonder too.
You know how much I love that. Yeah, and it's a wonder also. Yeah,
and very complicated wonder.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the family, you just get this love. And I remember, like I said, when I walked out of the theater of The Conjuring, I was in tears, and it was that moment, very much like Poltergeist and Jo Beth Williams, where Lily Taylor, when they put their hands on her, and when she's possessed, trying to kill her daughter, her very Drew Barrymore looking daughter, who was almost in Poltergeist. She auditioned, but he thought that. He thought that Heather looked more angelic than Drew, and she was, I think, younger than Drew was, maybe a year younger. Maybe
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but
really.
But Drew was that her audition for Poltergeist got her the part in E.T.
Oh yeah, damn. I didn't think about that. She was in E.T. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he thought, I guess, yeah, maybe they discovered both of them around the same time, and just like, hey. I think Drew would be better for Gertie, and Heather would be right for Carol Ann. And I think he made the good call there, definitely. Because Drew was definitely had more fire and spunk and fit Gertie.
They are 10 months apart.
Okay, yeah. I knew Heather looks a lot younger.
She's about 10 months younger. They were both about 6 when the movies were made.
Okay. And he discovered Heather at the MGM studio. She was having lunch with her mother, and he went over and introduced himself and requested that she audition. Apparently, she didn't do very good in her audition, and it was kind of Steven just believed in her that she was the right kid for it.
She was great. Like the little things that she doesn't have very many scenes.
Yeah, I don't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but there's little scenes like with everything with when the bird dies with Tweety. Yeah, that was fantastic for a 5-year-old acting.
Yeah, what did she say? She says that was one of the little moments I think is with the bird scene that I was thinking about. Like she says, I have to maybe it's in my notes. That made me think of my Christmas movie because I open it with the woman finding a dead bird in a cage and putting it in a box. And I didn't get it from Poltergeist. It was just in that movie, the characters are being held captive, and I wanted to represent captivity. And I thought, what represents captivity? And I thought, well, a bird cage or cage, right. A prison. And I thought, well, we'll have a bird. And then the characters needs to learn that if she doesn't try to escape, she's going to end up dead. So the bird is like, if I don't do something tonight, I'm going to end up like this bird. So, but then when I watched, like, oh, that's in I have a scene like that in my movie. Yeah, it's just the scene where can I get a go fish now?
Yeah. there's a lot. So we had to, unfortunately, we had to try to rehome our dog that we had over the summer and winter and everything. And like we took it back to the place, talked to people, and Helena looks at me and goes, "Can we get a cat now?" I'm like, yeah. And she when she saw the scene today, she's like, "That was like me." I'm like, "Yeah, that's like most kids, I think."
I do think that Heather probably wasn't that good of an actress. I do, because what I see when I watch the movie is editing around someone who's being told to say a line.
Mm.
Because her eyes wander like little kids do. Like even when she says "Hi, Daddy,"
Mm-hmm.
her eyes stray away from him after she says it, which you wouldn't want. You want her to stay on there, but it's like she said her line. Now what is it break? That kind of thing. So, and even like
did I do a good job? That's what she was doing.
Yeah. Did I? Is that good, Steven?
Yeah.
Mr. Spielberg.
Was that good, Tobe?
Was that good, Toby? But even like something I noticed today when she says they're here, it doesn't match her mouth. It's like it's an ADR line.
I bet it is. Yeah. Because it like when she says they're here, it's kind of it looks like she's saying it short, but it drags on, and
her mouth is still moving after she says here.
Yeah. I don't know. I can see what you're saying, but I will say that she probably wasn't very good as an actress because she was in 2 more films, and I hate to be. She wasn't great in those. I mean, it's sad what happened to her, but as far as acting skills go, she wasn't that great.
She was just a very unique, cute little girl.
She was very cute. Yeah,
had a very, there are a lot of cute kids out there, but there's some that just have a very unique look, and she had a very. I don't know anyone that looks like Heather O'Rourke. She just had a very, the way her hair was, the
straight blonde hair.
The element that she had that gave her those chipmunk cheeks, like she had a kind of a, I don't know, there was just, her features were very unique. Where it just like Drew Barrymore has a very unique look, even though she was Hollywood royalty. She had a very great look, but she just was also she was just really good.
It could have been Heather O'Rourke in Scream if she wouldn't have passed. You never know. So I didn't know if we would get into this or not, but I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't touch on the curse of Poltergeist, because this is probably the most well-known movie that has a potential curse. I always use quotes because I don't think I believe in curses.
Yeah.
Julian Beck died during the making of Poltergeist 2, and you never got to see his phenomenal, performance. And then, of course, Taylor, the unfortunate thing that happened to Dominique Dunn. It's just, I don't think it was a curse. It's just like there's no Superman curse either. It's been broken if there is. But I just think there's some unfortunate things that happened. I mean, what do you think? What are your views on this?
There's a guy in that cursed films that at the end kind of says
the prop master.
That's kind of like disrespectful.
Yeah,
and 100%. It's like there's no fucking curse. Like this woman was murdered by her boyfriend. Lou Perryman, Bluto, was murdered.
He was.
Yeah, he was. He was stabbed by somebody or
no shit.
Just like not too long ago.
Damn.
And of course, Sam, the Native American actor Will Sampson, passed away shortly after, and Julian Beck had. But I think Julian was already sick when he got.
They knew he was dying.
Yeah, he was dying. That's why he looks. I mean, he was never like healthy looking guy.
He was always really thin.
But he definitely looks like he's dying in that movie.
And for somebody who's knocking on death's door, he turned in one of the best performances, scariest performances humanly possible, in my opinion, ever. As Kane. So
that scene on the porch is the scariest scene, and one of the scariest scenes I've ever seen.
Yes,
it just chills me. You all gonna die. I'm just him singing. God is in His holy temple. It creeps me out.
Yeah, I love Poltergeist too. We'll maybe one of these days get to that one, but yeah. And then of course Heather O'Rourke died. at like 12 years old, 13 years old.
Misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease and had a growth, I think, in her kidneys or liver or intestines or something. Yeah, intestines.
Like that, yeah.
And it burst, and she got toxic poisoning, I guess. And
toxic shock or something.
Toxic shock. Yeah, I think it's toxic shock is what killed her.
Yeah.
And when they did the third movie. But yeah, I don't think there's a curse because, like, you know, there's so many horror movies that are made. You know, I hate to say, I don't want to bring that up, but I just don't think it's you know. And people said on it, like a special, people believe in curses to cope with things that aren't explainable or make them feel better. And also sometimes it's fun, like we've talked about. You know, the evidence points to that the Amityville Horror is total bullshit and a lie and a hoax.
It's one of the best hoaxes of all time.
Yeah, but it's like still fun to pretend or play that it really exists. But I don't, you know, like my daughter came in today, yesterday, and was talking about this whole reveal that the government said that there are aliens, and everyone in the world's just gonna go, eh. You know, like no one's making a big deal about it. And I said, I think deep down a lot of us just suspected it was. You know, like I never thought that there weren't UFOs. I didn't think that there was any way that all these people who have seen these things were just nuts or were mistaken.
And this has been going on since at least 1941, maybe even longer.
It's probably been a lot longer. Just not
yeah, I mean, you hear about things like, have you ever heard of Skinwalker Ranch and all the goings on there? I mean, there's so much. It's like aliens. Oh, all right. Just yeah. It's.
I mean, the universe is so huge, and beyond the universe, you know.
It's kind of arrogant to think that we're the only intelligent life forms in the universe. You know.
Yeah. So that did shock me, but I also don't think that ghosts are not real. I think I've seen things, I've experienced things. Now, of course, there's always scientific reasons. There's things to explain things, but there are things that I've seen that I'm like. So I'm a believer. And even when I know it's a hoax, it's still fun to play along with it. It's still fun to say, well, maybe there is a Bigfoot. Maybe there is a that. You know?
It's asking the questions. For me, you know, like we have the 7 gates of hell close to where I live, and do I believe that if you go through all of them at midnight on Halloween, will it open a portal to hell? No, but I love the conversation about it. I love talking about that stuff. You know, just like you have ghost stories. Your movie is based on something from where you're from. You know, I mean, do you believe there's a werewolf out there? Maybe. I bet Seth does.
Yeah, we've got the Pope Lick monster, and then there's Pan at one of our parks, like the statue of Pan that comes to life, and then we got Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and there's so many things in Louisville and in Kentucky that are haunted or paranormal. And you know, my wife just went to Charleston, South Carolina, and she went on a ghost tour down there, and
that's
all
cool.
this stuff there. So I do think there's stuff that stays around, energy. And what we're dealing with this movie is the whole purgatory thing, or we're like a lot of people say, you know, ghosts are just people who don't realize they're dead and need to be move on, need to be told that they can go towards the light, they can go to heaven or whatever. And so there's this really nice thing in there where, you know, Carol Ann is an angel that these people need to guide them because she's
the angel.
Yeah, and it's like they're and the reason being is that this movie also deals with adulthood and childhood and how children are more open to belief and imagination.
And animals.
Yeah, animals. The dog reacts.
The dog, yeah.
But as we get older, become more cynical and skeptical and forget to open up our mind. That's why when Jo Beth Williams is trying to show Craig T. Nelson the whole chair floor thing, she's like, remember how it used to be when we were more open-minded? You know, you need to do that, you know. And so when he sees it, he's just like, how is this? He has to figure it out, you know. And so, I've talked about. I think referring. Like we as men just need to figure these things out. Like we have to protect our family. So the whole thing where he's just like, no one goes in the kitchen.
No one figure this out
until I figure this out.
Yep.
It's
and
like
the first thing they do is go to the neighbor's house.
Yeah, and I love that's another little bit. That's another tidbit I want. Thank you for bringing that up. When they go to the neighbor's house to talk to him, it's an awkward scene. But what I love about it is the whole mosquitoes thing, because it makes the scene interesting. It gives the actor something to do that's abnormal. Anyone else shooting that scene would just have them talking to the neighbor, just blah 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 blah. But the fact that they're like, oh, and then cut to a scene next where they're having another conversation away from them, but they're having to put ointment on each other to tend to the mosquito bites. It gives the actors busy work. So they're not just standing there talking to each other. They're actively doing something.
Again, that's part of making this feel realistic too.
Yeah. We've all been eaten up by bugs at night. We're out.
Eaten up by bugs while their neighbor is eating a plate of baked beans. I think that's what that is.
And that whole remote control fight.
Yeah. Oh, there's the tattoo.
Well, tattoo.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. There's so many little moments in this movie. I think that's why it feels more like a Spielberg movie. Little moments like that.
Because I never see any of that in Hooper's work. I mean, I'd have to go back and watch all of it, but those things are pure Spielberg. That's what he does in his movies. If you look at E.T., especially those early E.T., Close Encounters, and Jaws, some of the things that I love the most about that and were so influenced by him is the way to handle. Like, just I love when we meet the family in Close Encounters and they're at the train set and Richard Dreyfuss is like talking to his wife and they're just having this general conversation and the other kids in the baby's thing banging something and all of a sudden just Richard just like, you want to be dead, or he says something like, there's just all this chaos, people talking over each other, kids making noise. When Brody's on the phone in Jaws and he's hearing about something.
You know these people. You know their first names.
Yeah. They come, Brody's there, and then the wife's there, and then Michael walks in. I got bit by a vampire, and like now mom's tending to the boy, she's having to clean him up. And then when she goes out to say goodbye and give him his coffee, she doesn't just like say, hey, bye, chief, or whatever. Like she joins her little boy on the swing set and swings with him. I mean, it's just beautiful little minor details that give the actor something to do and makes it feel familiar and homey and loving. And they're to the point where you don't want to see. And it like Jaws, like where, the whole argument about like we see Brody looking at all the shark attacks in the books and all that. And then he's like so paranoid. And it's like, where's Michael? He's in the boat. He's sitting in it. And she's like, can you get out of that? And she's like, oh, come on.
It's his birthday tomorrow.
Yeah. Then she looks at the picture of the shark crashing into the boat. She goes, Michael, listen, you're a father now.
I love that scene.
It's so perfect. And that's the stuff that I
also love when she first comes up that she scares him. She startles him because he's so,
oh yeah.
He's
like so intense into it.
Yeah. It's Steven Spielberg has got to go down as, if not the best, one of the best storytellers of all time.
He won't go down as the best because a lot of people hate Spielberg. It's like critics.
I don't understand that.
Well, it's the same reason Frank Capra doesn't get all the respect that he should get. Historians, critics hate sentimentality. They think they don't like all that. They don't like all that. Like they want. They just don't like it, and so Spielberg has often been criticized, and that's why a lot of people think that Spielberg, I don't think he got an Oscar till Schindler's List. I think because they just thought he was too over sentimental with the sentimentality. It was just to them, filmmakers shouldn't be that way. They shouldn't be over sentimental and put all that stuff too feel goody, and they think that's the anti what critics want to see in films. They want to see bold, challenging, hard stuff. And so, fuck It's a Wonderful Life and fuck Mr. and Miss Smith Goes to Washington. And no, those are great movies and they should be respected. And Spielberg should be respected. But he had to make Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan and stuff like that before they went, okay, the guy's good, we get it. It was like, no, like, I mean, just you look at those movies, Sugarland Express and Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Close Encounters and E.T. and then this, which he wrote, and Gremlins, which I'm sure he had a piece. I mean, I know he produced it. The motherfucker's great.
Yes. There's nothing. I mean, I've never watched a Spielberg movie that I can think of and thought, God, this sucks. Like everything I've ever watched by him, I know generally like I'm in for something special, you know. And like when the last movie I watched from him was The Fabelmans, which is kind of about his family growing up and everything. And I'll be honest with you, watching the trailer, I was like, man, I don't know. But I watched the movie and I'm sitting there like, I don't move for the 2.5 hours or whatever it is watching that entire movie. Like, that son of a bitch, he got me again. Like Spielberg's great, man. I don't get why anybody wouldn't like him. I mean,
and it says something else I was going to bring up is this movie has a lot of strong women in it. The women are really, even though Craig T. Nelson's like, hey, I got to figure this out, I got to solve this. It really is Jo Beth Williams who is really desperate, like her performance and her character, her actions, but also the doctor, the female doctor, and then Tangina. This is a movie like where these three women are really the ones taking control of the situation. And there was and I was saying that because Fabelmans, really points out Spielberg's mother, and how she was a great inspiration, probably what inspired him to be artistic and expressive and sentimental. And he had sisters, and so People magazine interviewed Spielberg around this time when he was making these movies and asked him why he has so many women around on his production, like in his team. Kathleen Kennedy, all these other people. He had a lot of women on his team, and he said, well, I grew up with 3 sisters and a mother, and I don't pretend to understand women or know everything about them. He goes, but he goes, I know, I have a lot of faith in them. And it made me think of like when I made my new movie, I did have a lot of women around, and I really liked having them there because I enjoyed making the movie with them because they especially like Katie, this woman Katie, who was a mother of 2 of the children in the movie. She was there and she ended up volunteering because she liked working on the movie. So she ended up coming, but she was, me and Kim would be like trying to solve a problem, and Katie would just say, why don't you just do this? He was like, yeah, you idiots, just do that. Like she was always there to like just get us out of our way with the obvious, like to solve a problem. And we're like, God damn it, Katie. You're right. You're right. But
the kind of voice of reason in a way, if you think about it.
Yeah. Because, man, we can just overthink shit, and Autumn Barefoot, who's my makeup artist, she was the makeup artist and she wasn't always needed, but she was there every day. And just, I love her. She's been, she's one of the first people I met in the film industry here in Louisville. And everybody here loves her. Everyone's pretty much worked. I said, if you're an actor in Louisville, Autumn's touched your face a couple times. That's my joke about it. And then Barbie Clark, who starred in Murder, Death, Killer, and she's in this, and she's my costume girl. I've met her on the Christmas movie, and I've made about 4 movies with her, and I adore her. And she's again someone who is just, when she signed on to work on Volumes of Blood 2, she said when she met me or saw all the stuff that I was talking about, all my prep work, she said, I turned to my husband and I said, I'm either going to hate this guy's guts or I'm going to love him. And she said she loved me, and at one point she's like, you're the only person I want to make movies with anymore. So we definitely worked good.
That's together. Awesome.
Yeah. So so when I heard that about Spielberg, I thought I had 3 women on my set a lot that I had a lot of faith in them. I took, and when I wrote my latest script, which was starring 2 females, I asked Autumn and Barbie to read it and give me their honest, did I represent these women right? is there anything that bothers you about it? How I wrote? Because men, writing for women sometimes get it wrong, and I said I don't want that. I don't want this to feel like a man wrote these women. I want it to be honest and real and believable, and so I have faith and I respect them for their opinions. So when I heard that Spielberg, and I think that plays into who he is and what happens in his films. There is a tenderness, that you don't see in other filmmakers. There is an attention to sensitivity and family and love, and you see that through Jo Beth Williams' performance of how much she loves her kids and how much she wants her daughter back, and
she's a good actress.
And the attentiveness of parents. I was just talking to my daughter about this the other day about how we have to look 10 steps ahead of what may happen. And so Jo Beth is so concerned about the pool. What if she falls in the pool? And he's like, oh, and then when they can't find her, like, oh my God, the pool.
The pool, yep.
And they go out there thinking she's drowned in the pool with the rain and everything. So it's just he's definitely in my top 5 filmmakers. I probably should just say he's my favorite because Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark have meant so much to me. And here I'm talking about Spielberg, and he didn't direct this movie. Well, I'm not saying shit about Tobe, and I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the best horror movies of all time.
But other than Poltergeist, I don't love any of his other movies. I like Texas Chainsaw 2. I like Funhouse, but I don't think he.
Did you like Life Force?
I
have reasons to like that movie. I'm just saying.
Also, I just second guess. With Texas Chainsaw, I do wonder how much of that is Kim Hinkle too, because when we talked about Part 4, even though people shit on it, Part 4 has the same feeling of chaos or just twisted derangement that the original had. To me, I think the Part 4 has that more than Part 2 and 3. It feels more. There's something about Part 4's what's going on in that house feels more like what I saw in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, than what I saw in the sequels, the other sequels. And even though Tobe may be a better director than Kim, and that's why Part 4 is kind of, I wonder how much of Kim's in some way that Texas Chainsaw should be also that Kim should come up more often in the conversation when talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I wonder
like Bill Finger when you talk about creating Batman.
Bill Finger, or even like John Russo and George Romero. Like when we talk about Night, no one ever talks really about John Russo. Like, but he wrote it. Like he co-wrote it. He was there. He was very involved in it, just as Russ was and everybody. So it wasn't all George. They were all novices that didn't really know what they were doing, and learning together and working together. But okay, I went on a tangent there, but
it happens. Let me ask you a question, because seriously, there's two. This is not even on topic, but who cares? When I think about you and filmmakers, there's always 4 that come to mind. It's Craven, Carpenter, Spielberg, and Tarantino. Are those your 4 of your favorites, do you think?
They're definitely 4 of my favorites. I wouldn't say Spielberg. I wouldn't say Carpenter and Craven are in my top 10, maybe.
Just more horror.
I love them. Yeah, when it comes to horror, they're tops. But I'm a big Kurosawa fan, and Kubrick and Hitchcock, and then there's a lot of others. So I don't know. I like Craven and Carpenter. I think Carpenter's a better filmmaker between the two. But there's so many other great filmmakers out there.
Wait, you like Craven more than Carpenter? Is that what you said?
No, I think Carpenter's a better director than Craven is.
He's got a better track record too.
I said that and Tarantino is my favorite filmmaker, but I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's better than Spielberg. I don't think he's better than Kubrick. I don't think he's better. It's just more of his aesthetic, and I think I think my love for Quentin is that Reservoir Dogs was the movie that made me want to make films. It was that snap. So he's the one that made me go, because I didn't watch like Raiders of the Lost Ark and go, I think I can do that.
No, there's no way.
No, I didn't watch Jaws and go, I think I can do that.
That's more of a, how did they do that?
But Quentin has said, he goes, I think I was the guy that people saw my films went, I think I could do that. Just like Kevin Smith said when he saw Slackers. He said, I could do that. So I think the 90s was the early 90s with guys like Linklater and Tarantino and Kevin Smith. Because when I saw Clerks, I was like, I could do that. So I think it was that era was what birthed a lot of filmmakers, because it was their films were the kind of thing that went, oh, I could do that. Like Coen Brothers are another favorite. Blood Simple was the kind of movie where you're watching, you go, maybe I could do that. And Sam Raimi, when he made Evil Dead, I think that was part of the charm, even though not a lot of us think like Sam Raimi or have that, his very unique. But then again, he's all like Three Stooges, and like his stuff comes. Everybody's inspired by somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always said there's 5 movies that I turn to when I want to really, when I need to be inspired filmmaking wise before I start a movie, and it's Jaws, Spielberg, The Shining, Kubrick, Halloween, John Carpenter, No Country for Old Men, the Coen Brothers, and Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese. So maybe I should say those 5 are my favorite. But again, I like Kurosawa and Hitchcock and Leone and Peckinpah and people like that. So there's a lot. Craven and Carpenter are definitely in my top 20, probably. At least Carpenter is, because there's things I learned.
Are you gonna hold Deadly Friend against Wes?
Come on, man. Like Craven was kind of hit and miss, or literally. Like, I mean, John was.
He was, yeah.
Because John was a technician. I think. I don't think Craven was a really good idea man, thoughtful, thinking storyteller, whereas Carpenter was really a technician. He was a. He loved film and studied film. Craven didn't see films until he was in college. So Craven was seeing stuff from like Bergman movies and things, and that's what made him write Last House on the Left, because he saw The Virgin Spring. And so Craven was just a different thing, whereas John was like a big film student, went to film school, loved Howard Hawks and John Ford and all those guys. So he was just a student of filmmaking and knows how to do that job in a scientific, technical way. Whereas I don't think science totally comes into to Wes. I think Wes is very much more of a philosophical philosopher, thinker, coming from that professor background, the teacher,
professor of English or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I still love him, but that's a rough movie. Do you have anything else on Poltergeist you want to get?
Let's see. There's little notes I put, things I liked. I wrote down, I love. I think you said the part where he says, "Hi, Daddy," and I like how the doctor leaves them to their privacy and closes the door for them to be the 3 of them to be together alone. I like that little touch.
Well, then we get Tangina's big moment.
Yeah, this house is clean.
This house is clean, yeah.
I love and it reminded me of Jaws a little bit, before she goes into the closet, the kiss. It's very Spielberg. That's a very Spielberg. That's like E.T. The music swells, and the way the doctor's looking and touched by it. By that kiss. I mean, that kiss has power. When you watch it, he's kissed his wife. She may not come back. And this is for their daughter. Which right before that scene, I wrote down that one where I like that scene. It kind of reminded me of another Spielberg moment, Raiders Lost Ark, where they're at the well of souls, and they see the snakes, and Saul is like, "It's very dangerous. You go first."
Yeah.
So that part where Tangina's gonna go in, and she goes, "No, I'll go in." She goes, "You've never done this before." She goes, "Neither of you." She goes, "You're right. You go."
Yeah.
I noticed that I wrote down Zelda was only like 49, so she was like my age in this movie.
Wow.
Craig T. Nelson was like 38.
Are we sure she wasn't on something? They were also young parents. They mentioned their ages in the movie. She's only 32, and
well, I think she is a second wife because she's not old enough to be the 16-year-old's mom.
well, she would have been 16. I mean,
She is, but I think that's her stepdaughter.
hmm.
And I think that's part of the relationship she has, like the whole with the guy's catcalling. Like if that was her daughter, don't you think she'd be pissed?
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah,
but because she knows she's going to stand up for her because she's her dad's daughter, you know.
I just thought it was a proud moment. Like, yeah,
I think she's proud, but I think if it were my daughter and those guys were catcalling, like, oh, whoa, you fuckers are fired, you know. But I think because there's a little difference, a little separation, because it's not her baby, and she calls the other kids my babies, even though you know the other girl's really not there. She shows up like, what the fuck's happening? But I think I read that Diane's actually his second wife. Let's see.
Well, the first wife got lucky; didn't have to go through all this shit.
The scene on the very Jaws-like scene with the Murray Hamilton type James Karen character, where he's showing the new place and they got the cemetery. We've done it before, and then it's like hits Craig T. Nelson. What? Like that the realization of he just gave me what's going on. Like you've done this before. Are you telling me we live on a graveyard? Oh, it wasn't some Indian burial ground, you know.
It's sacrilegious, though. It is moving graves. It's like grave robbing almost.
Yeah.
It's funny the reaction Helena had today when she realized that was Jane from Return of the Living Dead. She's like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "It's Ernie." I'm like,
very two different characters.
Yeah, very different characters.
And I read that he, you know, back then when he did this movie, he was a spokesperson for commercials, like a regional super like grocery store or supermarket chain, I guess out in California maybe. And he was like the spokesman, like on all the commercials for that store. And when Poltergeist came out, he got like all these messages. People like hated him and like were not threatening never to shop at the store again because they were like thinking he was the character he was in Poltergeist who did this. Do I have any other? But the scene just kind of reminded me of the Jaws scene in front of the billboard.
Yeah,
really the conversation.
Murray Hamilton, is that his name?
Yeah,
him and James Karen are kind of similar in their presence, you know, even delivery.
I was going to bring up that ending where the house implodes. I have a book on ILM, so I was reading about how that was done. Yeah.
Don't they? Where did we see that? That was they said how they shot that.
Well, the house, the model was like $25,000 to build that model. And they said, you get one shot. We're going to rip it apart. And they basically like just had this suction. They had this black thing to pull it into like a black hole, basically. And they were sucking it. But what I found were really interesting, they shot it, high speed or whatever so they could get it. But one of the guys on the set was like, it's what I read. It sounds crazy, but it says he had a shotgun and he was shooting the model to make it break up into more pieces that it would go into the vacuum. I was like, that's crazy. He's like, because I'm like, that could have fucked up the whole mechanism, though. Like it was risky.
Fucked up a lot of things.
Shoot a shotgun at your prop and your mechanism.
That's a cool effect, though.
Yeah, it worked, and he said when they shot it, and the guy was looking at, I guess the editor or the person who was, developing the film watched this. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it was just like it was like, that really looks cool. So it came out, but he said, the ILM guy said it was just written on the script. The house disappears into nothing. It's like, all right, we got to figure this out. The great ILM in their early days. Let's see what else I have. Beatrice Straight was the doctor, Dr. Les. I was saying how good she was. When she's I love the scene again where she's whispering about heaven, telling Robbie about the afterlife and spirits. Let's see. I have cinematographer. We didn't talk about cinematographer. I love the cinematography in the movie. The movie looks beautiful. I love the organic use of the strobe light because of the TV. It gives it creepy look to it.
Which is it's funny because that effect, the fuzzy TV,
doesn't do that.
That's gone now.
Yeah, it doesn't do that either. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. She's like, was it really that bright? How could anybody sleep? I was like, no, it wasn't that bad. It never was that bad.
But it was a great little visual effect in the cinematography. This guy, Matthew F. Leonetti, also shot Breaking Away, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Ice Pirates, Weird Science, Commando, and he was a cinematographer on the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. One of the later films he did.
Strange Days is another one.
Yeah, Strange Days. That was a James Cameron, right?
Mm-hmm.
I talked about that one. Did that one?
No, his wife, Catherine Bigelow, directed it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
He wrote it though.
I put I wrote down the little laughing robot, little toy robot laughing was cool. Yeah, the chair scene. I always love that. I was wondering, because it's all in one shot where she leaves the dining room table, comes around, gets something under the sink, comes back, and they're all stacked up. I was telling my wife, I bet they had all those glued together, and they were just able to just pop it up there because there's no way they would be able to stack that shit that quick without, having to do that 1,000 times. So if it were me, I would have glued them all or nailed them all together, and it would just be 4 guys, the grips to grab it and put it up there together. But I do love the scene where those little funny moments, like the moving across the floor and her saying, "Mommy, that burns.
I want pepperoni pizza."
Yeah, and it's so. What I love too is Carol Ann has been talking to these things, so she's completely bored. She actually yawns. It's a great little when Mom is so excited and Craig T. Nelson's like, what the fuck? And Heather's over I'm hungry. Just do this for me, baby. Just sit down. Okay, again, this burns. And they also bring up the cut, the jump cut there in that scene where she's in mid conversation with Craig T. Nelson and it cuts.
They go straight to the neighbor's house.
Yeah. You know why that is? Craig T. They talk about getting Pizza Hut because she says something about getting Pizza Hut. They come back to the whole Pizza Hut thing. She goes, "Let's go get Pizza Hut." And Craig T. Nelson said, "I hate Pizza Hut."
Oh.
And what happened was Pizza Hut was not happy about that and complained, and they did it. They cut it out to not upset Pizza Hut. So that was corporation got to them there to cut that scene. So
I like Pizza Hut.
Yeah, but especially then, what else was there? I don't remember having a lot of chain restaurants.
No, there was what, Domino's and Pizza Hut, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't even know if maybe Domino's was around then. I mean, locally we had a place called Mr. Gaddy's. I don't know if you have any of those, which was actually my preferred one. But yeah, Pizza Hut was the shit back then. But I didn't get it very often. It was kind of it's fancy.
No, it was fancy. Yeah. Every once a month on a Friday. Who wants pizza tonight? Yeah, you go crazy for it. Especially, remember Book It when we got to do the Book It thing? Did you guys do that in school? You read a book and you got a little stamp, and eventually you got your own free pan pizza. That was the shit, man.
Yeah. I never liked Domino's.
Okay, yeah.
Mommy, that burns. 22 minutes. The tree stuff. We didn't talk about the tree scene, which scared the hell out of me. That was the scene that got me as a kid. And maybe it's just because it was a little boy and I was a little boy and I identified with him. I don't think I had a fear of trees.
No, I don't know if it's that though. They could be, but there are some things that happened to Robbie in both movies, because in the second movie, that whole thing with his braces, that scared the shit out of me. That's completely illogical, something that would probably never happen to anybody. But Like that scared the shit out of me. And then the tree pretty much coming to life. Like you watch the kind of the lead up to that scene, he's climbing it and keeps looking up at it, and he knows there's something wrong with that tree. It's right outside his window, and he feels like it's watching him. I get it. That's creepy.
Yeah.
Something right outside your window, it's always there.
Yeah.
But my biggest question though is why didn't they cut that tree down? It's obviously dying or dead.
Yeah. It's
like before they built that house.
They're in California. I don't know if anything would be that bare.
Right.
But yeah, the one thing I wanted to bring up about the tree and that whole sequence and everything, we established that he's afraid of storms. Because the night before, he's scared about the storms and the whole thing about, here's the lightning, count to the thunder. And then the storm hits. But the thing is, it's only hitting, like, it's subtle. And it's briefly mentioned that the earthquake scene and all this stuff is really only happening to them. Because, like, he's on the phone the next day, like, well, you didn't feel, like,
yeah,
there was no earthquake.
6.5.
Yeah. But, like, that scene, there's a tornado outside when the tree's eating Robbie. And so one parallel I saw some people bring up was the Wizard of Oz, because there's a tornado, there's trees, and Wizard of Oz, there's talking trees, live trees, all that, and Dorothy goes missing after the tornado, and Carol Ann goes missing after the tornado, and the tree scene. And she's in another realm. She's taken to another place, another realm that's not here. She's still alive. To Oz. She's taken to Oz. And there's somebody else here, Mommy. I noticed a lot of yellow. We've talked about yellow and the significance, which brings up a connection. 2 years before this, The Shining came out, and Steven was really good friends with Kubrick. They corresponded a lot. He had a relationship with Stanley. That's why he ended up making AI after Stanley died. That was Stanley's project. But there is an homage to The Shining in this movie. When they're in bed with the parents and the TV starts talking to Carol Ann again, when it comes on itself, it's 2:37 in the morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Have anything else?
And of course, anybody doesn't know, that's the room number that Danny goes into and he's attacked. And
yeah.
And
you do see 217 at the hotel at the end. They go in like,
which is the real room number.
They go into 211. Yeah, 217 was the real number. I think it's the number in the novel too. See, I mentioned the trees, the curved staircase, the golden retriever. Women, playfulness, storm, Oz, toys, Lou Pearlman. I think I've got everything here. Delays, Zelda. Oh, the TV show. One of the movies they're watching on the TV is a guy named Joe with Spencer Tracy, where he dies. He's a pilot. He dies, and he doesn't know he's dead.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah. Okay. Which Spielberg remade into Always with Richard Dreyfuss and John Goodman and Holly Hunter. So Spielberg wanted to make Always. I think at that point he was already planning on remaking Always, but he ended up making Poltergeist and E.T. And then I think he made Always like after. I think that may have been after The Empire of the Sun or after Color Purple. I don't remember which one came first. Of course, a lot of people didn't like Always. I really like Always. But Always is a remake of a guy named Joe, which is playing on the TV in Poltergeist. And it plays to it because, again, Spencer Tracy dies and doesn't know he's dead and needs to move on. And so this movie deals with a lot with that. And I think it may be on TV shortly. I could be wrong. I think it may be around the time that Robbie's talking about, not seeing his grandfather's body leaving, or was looking for his soul to leave, or something. Which that was another line I forgot, was when she says that Carol Ann passed through me. She said she went through my soul. Like there was, that's one of my favorite moments in the movie. I think is when the Carol Ann passed through me.
Yeah.
And smell her. Like it's just, it just completely. I completely buy these people. I completely buy the situation. I completely buy everything because of things like those little details that Spielberg's so good at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you.
Shining. Oh, the only other thing I have is Eddie Murphy, because I always think of Eddie Murphy's bit, and I think it's hilarious, where he's talking about white people in these movies. He's talking about like Amityville Horror, and he's talking about Poltergeist, and he's like, he goes, if it had been a black family, we wouldn't have stayed. We've been like moving out, like the cops were like, well, Mr. Murphy, you say your daughter is in the television. It's like, yeah, man, yeah. He's like, well, did you try to save your daughter? He's like, man, I'm a man, I tried to change the channels, nothing happened. So I just always remember that Poltergeist joke, because he also makes fun of Amityville, where he says like they go into the bathroom and there's blood in the toilet, and the guy's like, well, that's peculiar. He goes, but that big black family, like, man, this is nice, man. Look at this. The kids are happy. We got a big yard. Man, this is really nice. Get out. Too bad we can't stay, baby. But I always remember the Poltergeist. So I was like, I gotta bring up Eddie, because I changed the channels. I'm a man, I changed the channels. Yeah, that's all I got on notes for Poltergeist. We didn't mention the guy tearing his face. You mentioned the tearing his face.
That was always the memorable scene that everybody that I knew that had ever seen the movie talked about, was the maggots coming out of, or whatever it was, coming out of the steak. Yeah, and then of course him peeling his face off, which really looked real to me back then, but it looked
not
terrible.
now. It just like
But the worst part is, like, I remember seeing it when I was like 8, 9 years old and thinking, God, that's so scary, Helena. And she's like, that doesn't look real at all. I'm like, do I have bigger wuss than my 9-year-old daughter back? Probably.
So much of the effects, and I wonder if it was, I guess it probably was the same people, like the corpses and that scene. It just reminds me of a lot of stuff we saw in Raiders.
Yeah, but there are some really cool effects in this movie, like when the closet transforms into the mouth that's sucking them in. That one thing that I kept putting up. I love the look of this.
I guess that's supposed to be Cain, right? Like a demon or something.
Look at the legs, and it's just creepy. It's funny. Have you ever seen the 2016 Blair Witch sequel?
Yeah, just once.
I think you can barely see it, but the Blair Witch has the long arms like that and stuff. So I wonder if they kind of took that from there. But
awesome.
Yeah, one of the other things I have is the Horror Syndicate. What is it? 5-star reviews. You said it has to be at least 88%. Our followers give this a 91%.
That's what I was hoping. I was like, it should be in the 90s, but I when you asked me, I thought, was it going to be surprisingly low?
I was surprised it was higher, because when I got into the horror scene with all these people, like all these horror movies that I just loved growing up, apparently aren't as well received as I thought they were. So I was very pleased to see 91% on this one. Like the Amityville Horror, for instance, I adore that movie, but for some reason, people don't seem to like that movie as much as I thought they did, which is fine.
Amityville Horror is not great. Like I'm not a huge fan of that movie. I like the atmosphere. Of course, I love Margot, and
James Brolin's awesome.
James Brolin's cool. But as a whole, I much prefer the second one.
The second one's underrated. Yes,
the second one's one of the scariest movies I think of the 80s. I think it's terrifying. I remember I had only seen the original, and I was staying at my grandparents' house in the country, where I shot a lot of my new movie. And but we were down there, and it's one of those small country towns in Kentucky, and they did have a Walmart, so we went to Walmart that night, and they had the Amityville VHS like double tape with part 1 and part 2, and I bought it because I'd never seen part 2, but I wanted part 1 on VHS too. So I really bought it just to get part 1 because I figured the sequels probably weren't great, and so we watched it.
Not beyond that one.
I popped it in part 2, Possession, and I'm like, oh my god, this is great! Like I love this. And it was terrifying. It was scary, and I thought this is so much better than the first one.
There are real world terrifying things in that movie though too.
Yeah, and I guess also because it is based on the real story.
Yeah,
I mean those people were killed, and I mean I don't know about the possession thing. I know that.
I doubt that.
I doubt that. I think
I don't think Ronnie DeFeo was possessed by.
I think he was possessed by drugs, is what he was possessed by.
And alcohol, yeah.
And alcohol, yeah. So,
and his father was very abusive. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like murdering everybody. Now the whole thing about no one woke up, everyone was in their beds is weird. That shotgun blast didn't wake anybody up. We
are doing an episode on Amityville because it's one of my favorites. Later this year, so we're definitely going to get into that a little bit. Maybe we'll have to talk about the second one too, because the second one is a damn good movie in my opinion.
Yeah, but Amityville.
It's got Diane Franklin in it.
Yeah, Amityville's good, but Poltergeist is on another level.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, not even the same. I think Amityville 1 got like a 78%. I'll take it out whenever we come. But I also want to mention next week's episode, August 6th, we are talking about, I think it's safe to say all of us, it's one of our favorites of all time. Whether it's a horror movie or not, it kind of is. It kind of might not be. Who knows? We're talking about...
Oh my God, yeah.
Predator, 1987. One of the coolest fucking movies of all time, regardless of what kind of genre it's in. It's got Arnold. It's got Carl Weathers. It's got fucking Minnesota's governor, Jesse the Body Ventura. It's got a guy from this movie, Poltergeist, in the back, Billy.
He was running for office too in Kentucky.
Did he really?
Yeah, he died in Kentucky. He was down the road in Lexington, I think. Yeah, he was I don't know if he's running for sheriff or mayor or governor or something. He was running for something. Before he passed.
We also have a future screenwriter, right, and a director.
Oh yeah, he Shane Black in there was. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the same year he wrote. Well, Lethal Weapon came out, which he wrote, and he wrote the Monster Squad that year too, right?
Yeah, and wasn't he the one? Is he the one that directs Christmas movies?
Yeah, most of his movies take place Lethal Weapon set on Christmas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all the things.
Iron Man 3
is Christmas.
Yep.
I think Predator. I get maybe the Predator was, or maybe it wasn't. But yeah, the Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the Nice Guys.
That's a good movie.
The Long Goodbye, or was that what it was? The one with Samuel Jackson and Gina Davis.
The Long Kiss Goodbye.
Long Kiss Goodbye.
Or Go On Kiss Goodnight.
I think The Last Boy Scout may also be set on Christmas.
I think it is.
What else is I don't remember? But yeah, he has this tendency to set everything on Christmas, even though they're not Christmas movies. You don't watch those and go, oh, Christmas movie, But under Die Hard laws, they are Christmas movies.
That's true. Yeah. So Predator is next week. We're gonna have fun with this one.
Yeah, you're talking top 10 favorite film of mine. Really.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's one of those movies that you can watch at any point in time, at any point in the movie, and just finish it. You could pop it in from the beginning and enjoy every moment. You can just start right when they're attacking the people, getting the information. Stick around. You could watch it at any point. That's one of those. I stop what I'm doing and I watch it if it was on TV. Now I don't have that luxury,
and it's one of the movies I vividly remember the night I saw it. It's a good memory.
I saw it when I was about 8 years old, and immediately after that, me and my 3 stepbrothers, we put shoe polish on our faces and stuff, and we had this really cool area called the Quarry that we'd always go and act like we were doing army stuff, and after that, we were immediately hunting the Predator. It was so cool. Of course, all of us wanted to be Arnold,
Yeah.
But my dad used to call me Arnold for some reason, so I always like, well, that's mine. I get to be him.
That was, I will say, I think I was a bigger Schwarzenegger fan than Stallone. I know it was kind of between the two, and yeah, with movies like Commando and Conan and Terminator and Predator,
Raw Deal,
especially
Red Heat. I don't. I like them both. I mean,
I like them both, but I
feel like
Schwarzenegger has more.
Well, Schwarzenegger has the more fun movies, I think, but I think Stallone was more serious at the time. If you look at movies like the Rocky movies, and at least First Blood, and then I think Rambo 2 was kind of like, well, shit, let's start acting like what's his name?
Yeah, First Blood's my favorite of his movies, and Rocky, of course, is a masterpiece.
I love Rocky.
But Rocky's probably the best film he's written and a part of. But First Blood is just really good with him and. Well, I mean, I kind of laugh at Richard Curran's very over the top performance, but Brian Dennehy's amazing in it as a sheriff.
He is. He's such an asshole. I love Brian Dennehy
as
an actor, but that movie, you hate him. I either way, Stallone and Schwarzenegger. That was my youth, So talking about Predator is going to be a lot of fun because I'm a big fan of Carl Weathers too because of Rocky, playing Apollo Creed and then being in this. Dylan, you saw.
Oh yeah, Carl.
Yeah.
I always like Bill Duke too, and Commando in this, and he's great. He became a big filmmaker too.
Go back to this picture. He played the president, I believe, in one of the X-Men movies, or one of the advisors. He was something. He had to do something like that. And I was also in Commando. It was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and he's in Mandy too, and I love him in Mandy because I kind of felt like he was Mac in that movie because he's in fatigues and he's kind of like. Oh, look, it's Mac.
He's a guy that he doesn't look like you can't ever fuck with him. Just the look on his face. I loved him too. He was in Terminator. He wasn't in Terminator. I'm thinking of Commando.
He's a Commando. Yeah. He was a guy like, you ready? I'm the Green Berets gonna kick your ass. He's the one who says that to him.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, killing the people from the garbage truck and all.
I like the garbage. You almost missed me. No.
Don't worry, we won't.
Don't worry, we won't.
I was going to tell you that Brian Dennehy joke, not really a joke, but a story Patton Oswalt told about him. He said in one of his stand-up shows, he said that somehow I got lucky and I was invited to the premiere and the after party for The Dark Knight. He goes, and I'm at the premiere and I'm at the after party after the movie. And there's this catering, and all the actors, Christian Bale, all of them, they're not touching it because they're actors and they can't eat. He goes, but I go over there and I see like cheeseburgers and all this. So I go over there, I grab me a plate and I just start piling my plate with all this stuff, all this bad stuff. He goes, all of a sudden I feel this big meaty hand on my shoulder and it's Brian Dennehy. And Brian Dennehy goes, character actors, who gives a fuck if we're fat? And actually, Brian Dennehy read the script to my movie Wish for the Dead. I was told one of the women who was working on the film was from New York and she was Brian Dennehy's daughter or granddaughter's acting teacher. Somehow she was teaching one of Brian's children or grandchildren and got to know Brian. And actually gave him my script for A Wish for the Dead, my second film, and apparently he liked it. He said it was good, and we were trying to get him in the movie, which would have never happened, but it'd have been cool. I was like, well, at least Brian Dennehy read my script and liked it. That's kind of.
And plus, you would have found somebody taller than you. He was. Anyway, all right. Well. Is there anything you got some final thoughts on Poltergeist before we step away for the night?
Honestly,
and we got to get prepared because
I got to jump into that one, man.
Yeah,
don't want to be a slack-jawed, bad word. Anyway, yeah, Poltergeist is just one of these odd movies where I always forget this movie. I don't know if this happens to you. Like when I talk about all-time best horror movies,
Yeah.
I always skip Poltergeist, and when it pops up, like, oh, Poltergeist. Why did I not think of Poltergeist? When I think about, oh, here's my top 10 of the '80s, which Poltergeist should be on. I never put it on, and then I go, Poltergeist. Like it just never resonates with me, and I don't know why. Because I think quite possibly Poltergeist was probably the first horror movie I ever really watched. I think I'd seen a few things. I was I'm pretty much the same year. I'm probably Heather's age. I'm Drew's age, but Drew's like maybe 5.
75. Drew Barrymore was February of 75. Heather was December. So you're right, probably a tweener.
Yeah, I'm about 6 months younger than Heather. So I was little. I didn't watch a bunch of horror movies when I was 6, but so I think, or younger. So I think Poltergeist was probably my first horror movie, unless you count like Swamp Thing. Maybe I think that came out before.
Another Wes Craven classic.
Yeah, but Poltergeist I think was like probably my first experience with a scary movie, and it was one that was scary, but because of Spielberg's handling of things and how he makes it. Someone said the opening of this movie kind of feels like a children's movie. There's some of the same tropes you would have seen in E.T. I mean, really, like you could take the opening of this movie, take out the whole TV thing, and it could have felt like scenes from E.T. It could have been the family in E.T. There's all that same suburban safety family hallmark thing that just works so well and makes you really stick with this family and love them. So yeah, I love this movie. I think it's one of the top 5 ghost movies of all time, with The Shining and The Haunting and The Innocents, and I don't know what will be the other one.
That might be a list we may have to create at some point.
I personally would put The Conjuring on that.
Oh, I love The Conjuring. I don't know why Conjuring gets a bad rep.
Just new.
Yeah, probably.
And unless Exorcist counts, because Exorcist, but it's a demon. It's not really a ghost, but they kind of live in that paranormal. I mean, all those movies.
I look at The Exorcist as a possession movie more than
yeah.
I want to show this to you real fast. Also, by the way, this is it should come up on the screen in a second. I've been doing top 10 lists on the website. You were talking about how you forget about Poltergeist. I never do. Check it out. It's my number 1 for 1982. Hey.
Oh, The Entity, another great one. In Possession. Yeah.
The Entity's great. 82 is a big year.
3 great paranormal movies in the
82. But I have it over The Thing. I love this. I love Poltergeist. This is always, it's in my top 10 horror movies of all time list for sure.
That's probably my number 1 for 82.
Yeah, I love The Thing. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
I don't know. I love this movie. It's just like Jaws to me in a way. In so many ways, it reminds me of Jaws. Like Jaws is a movie I can watch anytime, and it always makes me feel good. And for some reason, Poltergeist does too.
And I think that's why everyone says Spielberg directed it, because it just feels like Jaws and Close Encounters and E.T. It just feels like those 4 movies all feel very relative.
Do you think Close Encounters is a movie we could discuss? Because I'd like to discuss that sometime. I know it's not really technically a horror movie, but it's not really. There's nothing scary about it, I don't think. But it's a really good movie that I'd love to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you do get a little boy abducted.
That's true.
From the aliens, but I think the movie plays it as somewhat of a horror movie until you realize that they're not really there to invade or kill anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would love to talk about it, because anything he did is worth looking at it as closely as you can. And I have like this huge book on that movie, I think. So
I didn't see that till I was 26, and I sat there in the same position and didn't move. And my wife's like, "You did not move the whole time you were watching." I was like, I was engrossed. I couldn't take my eyes off the film the whole time I watched it. And plus you get great performances all over that movie.
Yep. Yeah. Terry Garr and Richard Dreyfuss and who's the actress? The one from Christmas Story that plays the mother. I forget her name.
Oh, I don't remember her name, but yeah.
And then of course you got the great Francois Truffaut, the great director, playing the French guy, the one that's investigating. It's the guy that Spielberg looked up to and got him in the movie. Got it made for the 400 Blows and Day for Night, and I like he's another great filmmaker. Jules and Jim. So it's kind of cool to. And if anyone's never read the book Truffaut did, where he interviewed Hitchcock, I think it's the documentary too. Truffaut and Hitchcock, or Hitchcock and Truffaut, and it's just Truffaut sitting down with Hitchcock talking about all of his movies, all the way back to the silent film, and getting Hitchcock's input on all his movies. And because Truffaut was such a fan, and Hitchcock was seen as a hack by a lot of Hollywood people until Truffaut said, "No, this guy's like our godfather. Like everyone's worshiping the French New Wave. Like Hitchcock's our king. This guy's one of the great filmmakers. Should respect him."
Okay, was I frozen? I felt like I was frozen for a second. Okay.
Not in this heat.
Was I? Yeah. God, don't even get me started. Okay. Anything else you want to say about Poltergeist before we go? Because
I do think you have a delay.
Do I?
Yeah, you've jumped off a little bit.
It's probably from opening that window. My computer is sold; it can only do one thing at a time. Anymore.
Is there a tree out there?
Yes.
I feel like I should have had my light set up with the lightning striking the whole time. No, there's nothing else I want to say. Brilliant filmmaking, brilliant score. I know if Seth was here, he probably would have gone on about Goldsmith, because definitely listen to this score without the movie. It is a really beautiful score. It's again, I used at least 5 tracks in my temp score for this movie just to capture not just the horror scenes, but part of the reason we feel the way we do is because of that score being so pleasant and likable and pretty, and it's not what people think to do in horror movies. But this movie balances drama, it balances comedy, it balances the horror, the love story. This movie has everything. It's beyond the horror genre. It's a movie I think even non-horror movie fans would love it.
Which is what I say about Jaws.
Yep.
It's beyond horror. Yeah, I agree. Poltergeist is one of those movies that it's more than just a horror movie, just like Jaws. And that's Steven Spielberg, 2 of them, essentially. Yeah.
He knows how to relate to a wide audience.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's had so much success. At the same time, he doesn't, he's not doing it without precision and intelligence, and he's not selling out. He's making the movies he wants to make. He's making the movies that make him feel good, that he's doing the things that he wants to do. He's excited about it. And I like, I probably put too much sentimental stuff in my movies. But I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm someone who loves big and cares about people and cares about family and those are the things that touch me. I when I watched his movies, again, she passed through my soul.
Yeah.
Her saying that, I felt it on my soul, where some people are like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It was too corny, cheesy. It's like, no. Just like Greta Gerwig, there's a scene in the new Barbie movie that's the best scene in the movie. touched my heart, made me want to cry. I thought it was beautiful. And the studio told her to cut it from the movie, and she's like, I'm not cutting that from the movie. And they're like, well, yeah, it's not important to the story. She's like, if I cut that scene, I don't know why I'm making this movie, because to me, the whole movie is that scene. And like, that's the difference of what artists and film storytellers and the execs and the money people. What's that? They're 20 minutes apart from each other, but basically same.
I was gonna say, I remember you saying something about this, but I couldn't remember what you said. Yeah, they're close to
20 miles. 20 miles.
Yeah, 20 miles.
Which is not 20 minutes away in LA. That's like 4 hours.
That's a 4 hour, yeah.
20 miles away, we should be there in 20 minutes. No, it's just 2 hours.
Yeah, it's like when I go look at I almost said MapQuest. When I go look at Google Maps, is MapQuest still around? Anyway, when I look at Google Maps, I'm like 20 miles. Oh, 21 minutes. Never mind. I'm fine. You know. Anyway, yeah. Next week, don't forget Sunday night, 8 o'clock. We're talking about these fellas. Talking about some awesome action horror. Predator is basically a slasher. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Takes them out one by one. Basically, it's just the jungle and a bunch of army guys. Awesome movie. I can't wait to talk about it. I love that movie so much.
If you don't tune in, I'll bleed you real quiet.
And I'm gonna dry shave my neck during the episode with a Lady Bic. But that's all we got for tonight. Good show. I wish.
Yeah, man. It's been 2.5 hours. We were dug in like an Alabama tick. All the fucking
yeah.
All the Predator lines.
Yeah, that's another thing about that movie is how many good lines there are in that movie, and it's not just Arnold either.
Yeah, because Arnold was very generous. That's what they taught. All the cast was like Arnold. A lot of other stars would have been like, "Give me that line. I want that line. I want that." And Arnold didn't do that. He was very generous to this cast, and that's part of why that movie works so well, because every character, at least 4 of those guys are stars, like are heroes in that movie. Like they could be they could be the lead in that movie. Just a little, if Arnold wasn't the obvious megastar.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's his birthday today. Arnold's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Happy, yeah. You son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch.
Anyway, we'll leave you with that. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget Wednesday, Seth and I will be on. I don't know what we're doing because we just finished the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, hasta la vista, baby.